Hi guys, Troy Worthen here with my teammate Alexi Toivonen, and today we're going to talk about how to defend takedowns when using the cage. So this is a relatively new concept. In today's age in MMA, we have cages and you could possibly fight in a ring. But either way, there's a barrier behind you. Now, this could be a positive or a negative for you as a person defending the takedown. Traditionally in wrestling, you learn to get your hips as far away from the opponent as possible when they're taking a leg attack on you. But with a barrier here, sometimes it's not available to get your hips further away. So now we have to use a little bit of new concepts that we're still developing today, but I have a pretty good idea of how to use the cage to stay safe. So we're going to start off with our opponent taking a shot and driving me to the cage. Now I have nowhere for my hips to go, so I have to use the concepts of keeping his head away from me and keeping his posture broken to keep myself safe and off the ground. So Alexi takes a nice double leg shot and gets me driven to the cage here. He's using his shoulder as a battering ram, driving me through the cage. And this is a bad position for me, and I have no weight on my feet. He's made my feet weightless by driving all my weight into the cage. So the first things first is I have to be able to get weight back into my feet so I can skillfully and powerfully get my hips back. So now, first things first, I need to make sure that I never turn away from the head. Whatever side his head is on, I need to look into. Because if I turn away from the head, it gives him direct access to my back, which I don't want. So, as soon as he drives me here, I need to turn my hips towards the head. Now, I need to get an overhook so I can start pulling him up, and I need to attack the hand. He wants to get inside position, meaning he controls the insides of my biceps, the insides of my wrists, and the inside of head position with his underhook. So, when he hits this double leg, again, I'm immediately turning in, controlling this, and raising his level so he can't put all of his weight through the cage under my rib cage. I want to bring him up a little bit so now I can get weight back into my feet. I pull him up and I try and control the inside position on this bicep. Let's switch sides so they can see what I'm talking about here. So when I pull him up, I keep my elbow low, nice and tight to my body, and I control the inside of this bicep. So now he doesn't have head inside position or arm inside position. Now I've got the weight back in my feet and I can make my legs heavy again. So it's not so easy for him to finish. From here, I need to start focusing on getting his head away from me. But I need to create outlets for my body to go as well. He's got me pretty much sucked in here because this arm is blocking me from running this way, and his entirety of his weight in this arm are blocking me from running this way. So what I can do is use this overhook, kind of push him forward. Now his weight is forward and he's going to need to readjust. But while I do that, I can swim this arm inside, creating a frame between my body and his head. Now I can start making our distance between his head and my body by reinforcing that frame and using my hip again to straighten my arm. Bumping out this way, and I can come out the back side. He takes the shot. I've turned my hips towards the head, and I've brought his level up. So now I have weight back in my feet, and I've made myself heavy again. I want to control inside the bicep as much as possible, even digging for this underhook. This is best case scenario. If I can get to this position, I pull him up and I turn towards my underhook, reversing the position as I pull down on the outside elbow. Now it's my position. But let's say he's a very skilled grappler and he keeps it one step ahead of me the entire time. So he takes his shot, I bring him up, and his elbow's nice and tight to the body. I can't dig my underhook. If I try to force the issue too much, he'll trap my arm to my body, and I won't have any way to defend myself anymore. So we're here. I start pulling him up, and I can't get inside because he's blocked this off. Now, my only chance is to get his head off of me, creating space. The way I'm going to do that is using this overhook to push his weight forward, almost trying to make his headbutt over here. Now he's going to have to readjust, but during that readjustment moment, it's going to give me time to get a frame in between us. So I bump him forward, his head comes off, and I create this frame in between us. Now, it's important to make sure that I keep my elbow flared, but not up. Because if I bring my elbow too high, he can bring his head under it, and now he has access to my back that way. So remember, I flare my elbow, but I don't go to the side too much, not too high. I control under the chin, making sure that he can't get his head under my arm. From here, I give him another bump, straighten out my arms, and I can come out the backside because his arm is straightened and he can't control my body with that. As he comes in, when I give him that bump and I create this frame, if he's a very high-level grappler and he keeps all of his weight to this side, knowing that I want to extend him, I can now use that against him. So what I'm going to do is use this overhook, push on his stomach and his hip with that, and I'm going to flare my elbow at the same time. It kind of gives him a bit of an arm lock on this straight arm. And now when I flare my elbow, I'm going to turn him towards that arm lock, controlling this position. And I want to finish with inside position. So this arm comes over and back under. One more time. He enters. Immediately, I turn my hips towards it. Remember, we always go hips towards the head. Now, I need to get the weight back in my feet because he's driving me through the cage. So, I grab the overhook and I pull him up my body. Now he can't drive me through the cage anymore. I want to control inside position. From here, there's a bunch of different options. It really depends on how he reacts, but we're going to stick to what we've learned so far. So, I can bump him forward, but if his elbows are flared out like it is right now, I can just dig for the underhook. When I dig for the underhook, I'm going to step under that so I have my hip power to turn his body and control this position. If his elbows are in nice and tight, I'm going to bump him forward, trying to make his head hit the wall and give me space to create a frame. Now that I've created that frame, I flare my elbow out forward, making sure that he can't come under it. If he even tries to push and change his level, dropping down, I have to follow him with that frame no matter where we go. I cannot let him get under and have access to my hips. So I drop down with him. From here, we can bump forward again, getting this arm elongated and come out the backside. Also, if he keeps his weight on this side, I can just flare my elbow and step in just like I did with the underhook, turning his body. From here, we want to make sure we end with underhook control. So this arm is going to swim under, and we put our head right on the inside, so we're in good position. Now, let's say he gets really deep on this double leg, and I can't get him off my hips, and I feel like I'm going to go to the ground. We have a last-ditch effort, which is bailing out and giving him my back. For most situations, you don't want to do that, but I have a pretty foolproof plan on how we're going to get away with that. He enters, gets to his double leg takedown. I cannot do anything, and he has all his weight through my hips to the cage, keeping all the weight off my feet, and I can't get heavy. So I'm going to go ahead and give him access to my back because this overhook is not there, and I can't turn into him. I turn away. From this position, I want to make sure that I'm keeping the weight towards the cage, and I'm always trying to put my hips and my butt towards the cage. So I'm using that to peel him away from me. Now, a big mistake that a lot of people make here is they don't put their elbow inside the lock. The biggest thing is putting as much pressure on this lock as I possibly can to break his hands open. So what I do is I put my elbow inside the crevice of his elbow, making more area consumed. So now, if he could squeeze his elbows tight here, he's very strong. But as I put pressure on that lock here, it's making it very hard for him to control this. And I can kind of sit here all day long because he's having to squeeze and I'm just using gravity to open his lock. He's wasting energy and he can't really attack me. It's maybe some light knees, but he's wasting energy and I have access to punch him with my hand or elbow. So it's probably best that he try and advance his position here. This is a great position for me, and I can just keep using the cage to kind of grind myself away from him. So again, we get here, I gave him back control. Immediately, I put my elbow inside the lock, and I start extending it. Now I start turning my butt towards the cage, putting a lot of pressure on his lock where it breaks the lock. From here, I control the wrist, and I dig for my underhook. Now, I have inside position. I can turn him and control in the cage, or I can just break away and go back to a striking battle. So one more time on that. He takes his shot. He's controlled my hips. I can't do any of the before seeing defenses because he's too far. I've already passed that point. There's no return. So now I turn, giving him access to my back. From this position, I immediately put my elbow inside the lock and I make it really hard on his grip. Now I'm going to turn my hips back towards the cage and I'm going to keep pushing the entire time. If he's just holding strong here and trying to throw some knees, I can take this hand and throw some shots back. Chances are he's going to try and open his lock or switch positions. When he does, I keep control of this wrist, pop it open, this elbow drops all the way back for my underhook. Now I can follow him back to the cage, controlling the position, or break apart and go back to a striking battle. So to review, the big concepts here are making sure I can get weight back in my feet, control inside position, and give myself a way out. Using the cage as a way to hold myself up and peel his grip off of me the entire time. We'll go through everything real quick one more time. He takes a double leg. I need to turn my hips toward his head immediately. Now, my overhook and the other hand control him as I pull him up. Now, the weight is not being pushed through the cage anymore and it's back in my feet, making me very heavy. From here, we have a few options. But first things first, I can bump him forward, creating that space with the frame. I've put my frame in. Now I'm going to bump him forward again, lengthening my frame. And I can come out the backside. Shoots in, turn my hips towards him. Get inside. Now when I bump forward, create the frame, and I can use my elbow to peel his head away and control this position. From here, I always finish with inside control. We get back to this position. Takes his double leg, turn towards the head. Always peeling up. And now, if the elbow is flared, go ahead and switch sides. Elbow is flared out. We just simply dig our underhook, step under it, and turn the position. Controlling here. Last ditch effort. He gets a really good shot, and it's too late for me to try and turn my hips into him. My weight's already up. So I bail, and I give him the back. From here, I get my butt to the cage, put my elbow inside the lock. Put all the pressure on the lock, and if I have to, some pity-pat shots to get his attention back up here and off of taking me down. Eventually, I get the lock broken, control this wrist, dig for the underhook, and control the position, or break away. So let's talk about a few common mistakes here, guys. Typically, when people get in on the double leg, sometimes you'll let your hips go flat during your changeover. So if he gets in on a double leg, remember, we never look away, but this has to be a quick movement. I have to pop my hips over this way, because if I just try and rotate while he has pressure in, as I come here, my hips are flat, he's just gonna suck my legs out from under me. It's gonna be an easy takedown. So make sure when you get here, it's a quick pop, and I hit him with this overhook to try and get his balance off. We're here. Now immediately I can dig for my frame. If I get caught with my hips flat, it's gonna be the easiest takedown of his life. So make sure we're not moving slowly here. And even if I do get to this position and we're in a strong position, don't let him walk his hips over to this side and flatten my hips out. I need to keep the pressure down and make sure all of his weight is coming forward. If anytime my hips become flat against the cage, I'm in trouble, and you need to make an adjustment, even if it's just trying to pull him up. Another common mistake here is giving up inside position. So let's say we get to this clinch position. He got up in here. I pulled him up. I'm where I want to be. I got him off of my hips, but I give up inside position. From here, if he has inside position here and I'm not worried about that, I'm just trying to keep his body up, he can either strike me or he has direct access to my hips again because he has an underhook and inside position on this bicep. So he can easily drop right back down into his attack. And this is a never-ending cycle unless I do the steps correctly. So as soon as I bring him up here, I need to fight for inside position immediately. Either rotating in and controlling this, rotating above and controlling this, however you need to do it. Those are the two most common ways, but remember, it's a battle between us. It won't work perfectly the first time. Just know, the biggest thing here is making sure I control the inside position so he can't drop and re-attack. So if I'm here, I need to get to this underhook or inside his arm and keeping my elbow tight. So if he drops back down, I can track his body no matter where he goes. He does not have access to my hip. And the third most common mistake is getting over anxious and trying to move out before you have your frames in inside position. So let's say I get to this position, he took his double leg, I turned in, I got him off my hips, and now I'm in a good position, but I get a little anxious and I try and rush it. Let's say I try and peel the head and run away, or I try and push him forward and come out the backside before I secure inside position or even head position. Because his head is on the inside of mine, I haven't controlled the inside. So if I get all this work here and now I try to escape, I've given him flat hips because I got over anxious. Don't skip steps, do everything correctly. So remember, once we get him off of our hips, we need to get frames and inside position in place before we try and escape. So if we get here, take your time. I'm fine here. I can keep him up, and now I start battling. He's going to battle back inside. I battle back inside. He battles back inside. I go over the top. Now that I've secured an inside position and I get my head on the same side, now I can decide if I want to take the risk or not. Scooting out, controlling these positions, or even bumping him forward and coming out the backside. Don't get over anxious. Take your time once you get to a good position. All right, guys. So to recap, today we've stopped the takedown from a double leg in space, double leg from clinch, controlling inside position no matter where we're at, stopping transition from double legs to single legs, and also giving up the back if we're in a bad position and still getting away without losing a dominant position. If you guys have any questions, drop them in the comments below, and we'll see you next time. Thanks, guys.